Okay, here we go. Hopefully you all can see that. If you have an issue, maybe you can go ahead and put it in the chat, which I'm trying to pull up right now. You also are welcome to put questions in the chat. There's a little note there, and I will use them for shaping the next sessions because I plan on doing more of these. I had over 200 people respond to me that just couldn't be here today, so I will be doing more. So if you do have questions, put them in the chat. I will make sure and download those and use them for shaping future sessions. You can also go to my website and sign up for my newsletter. That is where I will be like letting people know when I have future sessions. And also I'm going to do some extended sessions with question and answer time. So here we go. I'm going to talk fast and furious, and I'm happy to send anyone the slides. So if you want slides, you can just email me through my website again, and I will make sure that you get them. Happy for you to share any of this information. I just want to get it out to folks. I want to start by saying I am not here to defend nor to confront this movement and what is happening. This is just something that is occurring, and I am here and wanting to try to help families know some things that they can do. One of the things that's a little bit different about my research than some other researchers and therapists and psychologists and cultural anthropologists who study this is that I really try to be informed by students. So I have spent a lot of time talking with students across the country in the last couple of weeks, getting their thoughts and feelings, and I'm integrating that into what we're talking about today. My primary interest is in the students, the families, and the educators. We have created this world for students that really requires them to be online. And for us to now go in and just say, we're taking your phone cold turkey without your consent is probably really going to be great in the long run for many reasons. And yet we have to understand that it's just like if someone came to us and said, give me your phone for 8 hours. See you later. We need to really be prepared with some ideas of how to help these students. So if you take nothing else from today, I hope that you will take with you that the biggest trait we are all going to need in the next few months and weeks as this rolls out is empathy. We have to think about what this is like. Eventually, in countries and states and schools where this has occurred, where we've asked students to go for the school day without their cell phones, eventually they really appreciate it. They feel a decrease in their anxiety. They feel an increase in their ability to focus. Many of them report a decrease in bullying. However, in the interim, it's really, really important that we are empathic. It's also really important that we put some new supports in place. Just like think about something in your own life that you want to try to stop doing. Can you just do that cold turkey? No, more than likely you want and need some supports to help you be successful. So I'm going to give you what I promised in all the marketing. The first thing we're going to talk about is just very quickly why phone-free classrooms are important. First of all, they're important because, like we say, in the long run, we will see a decrease in distractibility. When we interact with devices, we are almost always, I think it's something like 90% of the time, we are doing what's called task switching, which means we are toggling between apps or we are toggling between devices. This creates in the brain a neurological proclivity to distractibility. Distractibility not almost always, all the research around multitasking shows that it does not create improved performance, neither does it create a sense of kind of competence or contentment with one's performance. Secondly, phone-free classrooms are important because they will have an impact on our students' mental health, again, in the long run. Now, in the lead up and as we transition, it's very likely to have a deleterious or a negative impact on the mental health of many students. So we do need to be aware of that in this interim time. It will also very likely, based on the research around schools in Norway and Finland and other, in particular Nordic countries, shows that bullying and non-consensual posting actually goes down. Right now, one of the biggest issues in schools is people getting screenshots of teachers or students that are non-consensually taken and then posted and used for bullying. So we do see a diminishment in this in classrooms that have gone phone free. And finally, we will see a long-term benefit. We will see it. However, in the short term, this is a really big ask. Why is this going to be a big adjustment? I'm going to tell you. The first reason that it's a big adjustment is we have literally changed the wiring of the brain in the last 20 years as technology has kind of, amped up and become ever more portable and ever more constantly with us. the brain, we're not going to go super into this in a longer session, I will, but the brain has 4 regions. It has, the upstairs brain, which is for higher order processing and kind of big thinking, big picture. The downstairs, or what they call the reptilian brain, which is responsible for thoughts, feelings, kind of, bodily functions. The left brain, which is really all about order, but it's at its extreme. If we have overfunctioning in the left brain, it's about rigidity, or it can make a person feel very rigid. And the right brain is kind of more holistic, nonverbal, emotional. If we have too much firing in the right brain and not enough balance in the left, we can see kind of a feeling of chaos. A healthy brain, we know, has wiring, electrical wiring and impulses that go all the way through the brain. It looks like a healthy brain looks like a tangled jungle. In my 100 years ago, when I went to graduate school, we thought the brain was like a file cabinet. And if you needed certain skills, you went to this file, and then other skills, you went to this file. We now know that's not true. A healthy brain has wiring that goes into each region of the brain. We also now know that our brain is what's called neuroplastic, which means that where the brain fires together, it wires together, meaning that what you expose the brain to will create deeper grooves, which deeper grooves mean more proclivity or more tendency. So right now, when we are multitasking or task switching with our devices, and in classroom, we've got something going on here, we've got something on our phone that's in our pocket, we feel it buzzing, we've got our tablet in front of us, what we're doing is we are wiring the brain to be constantly distracted. This means that wiring or experience with quiet, stillness, one thing at a time, does not get fired in the brain. Those kinds of experiences, just unless you create opportunities for boredom, for quiet, for nothingness, you do not stimulate the regions of the brain that create the ability to tolerate those things. This means that now we are seeing in the brain less wiring for the activities that will help students be successful, like focus. Well, we're going to get to that in a minute. So the brain now, it's not just that this is a behavioral thing that kids just want to be constantly looking at their phone or paying attention to the buzzes in their pocket. It's that their brain is now trained and wired to really pay attention, and ours too. That's the other thing we have to talk about. This is not just about our kids. Our kids are watching us. And so we too are likely to be showing and to have created proclivities in our brain that make us more attached to our screens and more attached to multitasking. Now, the beautiful thing is that if the brain is neuroplastic in this way that it prunes off, then we know that it is neuroplastic in the way that we can kind of create new proclivities. We can address the deficits that our children now face from this world we have handed them, where they have to be engaged in digital spaces. So the deficits that we want to think about, and that I think students and families will feel a beautiful long-term impact once we get past this bumpy beginning, is that students will be able to focus more. We currently see the big 3 deficits that even students talk to me about is that they feel like they can't quite focus on one thing at a time without being distracted. So that the idea of deep work, which is kind of known to be one of the things that make people successful as they launch, it means the ability to push past distractions and really kind of enter a zone where you can really do deep critical thought. You can advance your performance a little bit. That deficit we can address with phone-free classrooms, or with any time we diminish from phones and put into embodied situations, or situations where we're bored, quiet, having to focus on one thing at a time. The second big thing that students experience in the research and in my anecdotal research with them is this inability to delay. When they have a thought, they want to act on it. And I know this is me too, and COVID only made this worse, where you could be in your work meeting or a classroom and you could be shopping at the same time and watching YouTube, right? So they have the impulse that, oh, I need to check my texts. They don't have the ability to delay neither the impulse or the gratification. Maybe they just want to order that thing, or they want to check social media to see how their post is doing. That ability to delay is also built on robust wiring in regions of the brain that are called the CEO, the prefrontal cortex, that allow us to stop, to pause, to say, I will get that gratification, or I will tend to that impulse later. The third thing that students talk about and the research identifies is that there are deficits in the ability to regulate, both physiologically, so to bring our bodies to a state of calm attentiveness, and secondly, to emotionally regulate. We do not have control over what emotions do and don't come to us. They just come. And so we must deal with the fact that students now have offloaded that ability to calm and regulate their emotions and their physical, offloaded onto their phones, right? So what we call kind of a life where we get all of our stimulation, all of our education, all of our information, all of our soothing. We're tired at the end of the day, so we think, oh, I'm just going to stream videos for the rest of the day. What we call that is an external locus of control. Locus means the center. And ideally, for a healthy person, the center of their feelings of being able to emotionally regulate, of being able to focus, of being able to function in the world, it comes from inside. We look inside ourselves and do we like the values we're living by? Are the actions that I'm taking successful? Are they getting me to the places I want to be? Am I able to do the things I want to do? And am I able to stop myself from doing things that hurt myself? That is all meaning that, or that all requires a sense of being able to come inside of ourselves and evaluate and assess how life is going. Right now, most of the time, when in the past we would have had to do that because just life offered us opportunities for boredom or quiet, we now use a lot of that time that used to be idle time or boredom time scrolling here, which is again stopping us from having that reflective and internal time. So helping our students, helping ourselves be able to put this external form of reinforcement, validation, or not, depression, rejection, entertainment, education, putting it down every once in a while and relying on ourselves. That's going to be one of the biggest things that we can do to help. I think the other big thing that we can do to help is have really hard and complex conversations. Now, again, because I'm trying to keep this to a half an hour because our attention spans and our available time is short, we're going to go quickly. But just generally, how to have a good conversation looks a little bit like using these 3 points. First of all, we want to listen more and talk less. We want to ask questions. We also want to model that when we ask questions and they trigger in us some big feelings, like your students tell you what's actually going on in online spaces, which is usually a lot more than parents know and a lot more than what parents are comfortable with. We have to show them that we can be emotionally regulated and non-reactive. If they tell you immediately about something that seems extreme to you that is going on in online spaces and you just go like, oh, and take their phone and, like really overreact, you have shut down the opportunity to have a real impact and really important conversations with your kiddos. So the third thing we want to do in those conversations is use I statements. So let's say you do ask them, hey, can you tell me about some of the hard situations you found yourself in online? And they tell you, and you feel very dysregulated. You can say, oh, I feel a little overwhelmed. I feel a lot of empathy. I feel amazed that you can live and know that all of this hard stuff is going on and still be present to your daily life. The more you can use I statements, it allows your child to feel like there is space for them in the conversation. So those are some general ideas. Now, what do we need to talk to our students about? This is another really important thing. The first thing I think we need to talk about with our students is how to be emotionally regulated. This is going to be the first thing that's going to hit them. They are going to be in their classroom. And again, think about some habit that you have that you just, you don't even think about it, but you rely on 3 cups of coffee every day. And you go for that coffee pot and someone says, nope, we've held it for the day, you're going to go without. That's how they're going to be feeling when they first put their phones in the bag and they don't have their phone. So a very simple way of talking about emotional regulation is using a stoplight model. This is called a zones of regulation model. And you can help them say, in your body and in your emotional world, when you feel green, that means you sort of feel like ready to go. You feel sort of calm, you can focus, your brain is available to the present moment that you are in. But if you start feeling, like you realize, oh, I don't have that phone with me, and I wonder if my mom has tried to text me, Or I feel anxious and I am used to being able to contact my parent or my best friend or my therapist via text if I am feeling emotionally overwhelmed. Then you start to feel in that yellow zone. You aren't quite so present to the moment. It's your body, your mind, your emotions telling you to slow down, just like we do at a yellow light, and kind of take a moment and pause. If we aren't able to soothe ourselves within that pause, our emotional state goes to the red zone. And this is a zone where we are no longer in the present moment fully. We can't think, we can't regulate our body. Maybe we start really fidgeting, or we completely shut down, we panic. And this is the state that I think a lot of students are going to find themselves in those first few weeks and maybe even first few months. The state of feeling very overwhelmed and not quite knowing what to do. So anything that you can do to help them begin to identify in these early days and even before they go to school, when they are moving from a green to a yellow in their zone of regulation or a yellow to red. So for instance, what are your tells, honey, when you are starting to feel overwhelmed? Well, my hands shake, or my head, I start feeling dizzy, or my mouth gets dry, or I realize I'm not even paying attention to what's going on around me. I'm just trying to get my bearings. Okay, when you find yourself in that yellow state, what are some things you can do in the classroom that will help you? Maybe you take a few deep breaths. Maybe you put your hand on your heart and you remember that you can sort of, think of me, your parent or your therapist, and that somehow energetically I'm going to know and I'm going to feel you back. Anything you can do to help them begin to identify those zones of regulation and give them for some tools for helping themselves stay in that zone of tolerance, which that window of tolerance, which is in that green and early yellow stage, because once they get to red, it's going to be pretty overwhelming. And I also would love to be a resource to help school social workers, school counselors help students who are in that zone in the classroom. You can reach out to me and I'll be happy to do that. The second thing we need to have hard conversations about is impulse control. We are all used to grabbing for our phones. We're used to grabbing for them in moments of quiet. We're used to grabbing at them all the time. And so we need to help them find some way of feeling a little bit of sense of agency or control over that impulse to look at their phone. This could be done by giving them something to hold in their pocket, or something on a key ring that they carry on their backpack, even a little tiny square of a carpet sample that they can just feel the texture of. Or maybe it's some necklace that has some kind of texture that they can feel. Or you encourage them when they feel that impulse to check their phone to just take their pen or their pencil or whatever they're doing and just draw a circle or do a little doodle. But anything that helps them when they feel that initial impulse and they realize, like, I don't have it, to manage that moment is going to be helpful. The biggest thing we can do is help them with self-soothing. There are all kinds of self-soothing techniques that you can use. That's probably going to be the next session I do, is just quick ideas for self-soothing. The biggest one that we think of is breathing. And the most appropriate and helpful way to breathe when you are anxious is to inhale through your nose, exhale through your mouth. So that's smelling the roses, blowing out the candles. However, for students who are very anxious, breathing may be one of the hardest things they can do. So the self-soothing technique that I have used with college and high school students that has gotten the most enthusiastic response, and that I hear people, like, they'll DM me and tell me later, like, oh, I still melt all the time. There are two of them. One is melting. And basically, I'm going to ask you to do this with me right now. Wherever you are, let's pretend you're in class. You're in class right now. You can kind of soften your gaze. So your teacher doesn't see you closing your eyes. I mean, if you can close your eyes, you can do that too, but you just soften your gaze. You maybe look just gently at the floor and you tense every muscle in your body. Try it with me right now. Tense every muscle in your body. Just tense it and hold it for the count of 3. And then imagine from the top of your head down, you're just melting, 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 imagining the drips coming off your nose, off your fingertips, feeling heavier and heavier in your chair until you are so melted that you could just almost fall off your chair. The other one that students find very helpful is the idea of I call it a feather scan. And you just imagine this feather kind of coming in at the top of your head. Your body is an empty vessel. And you imagine that feather floating from side to side against the inside of your body, just scanning, like, okay, so is my mind racing? All right, can I let that go? It gets down to your throat. Is my throat tight? Can I send out some love and release? Goes through your chest. Are you having some really difficult feelings or feeling tight in your chest? Can you send some love and warmth there, and floating that feather all the way down to the bottom of their feet? These are two that have gotten great responses, and your kiddo may make fun of you when you try to teach them these, but I would do it anyway. What we know from the research is that when you get buy-in from students and when you take step-down approaches, the long-term research is very clear that when you take step-down, meaning we use our phone a little bit less every day and we have buy-in from the students, it usually goes incredibly well. The situation we're in right now is that we haven't really gotten buy-in with the students, and we're not going to be able to get it. And we're not going to be using step-down approaches. We're just going to be cold turkeying this. So anything that you can do to help with soothing is going to be huge. The fourth thing we have to start talking about is awkward moments, because guess what? Our students are about to experience about 1 million of them every day, right? We all rely on our phones to kind of help us through that awkward moment when someone's facing us and we don't want to talk to them, or we just don't know what to say, or for students to find answers for things in class. Helping them name that there's just going to be a lot of awkward, and that awkward won't kill them. It will make them very uncomfortable. It may make them face some social judgment. However, that social judgment won't be put online for everyone, because our cameras won't be with us at all times. But helping them talk about, this is going to be awkward, and awkward is okay. We've just so conditioned ourselves to distracting and avoiding that the more we can just, and I actually have been practicing, was in Chicago last week and had some youth with me, and I practiced making awkward moments in public, like dropping coins as I ordered something, or just being really awkward with people, and then just kind of said to them, like, how did that feel for you? And I lived through it. It was okay. Awkward moments actually help us come back to that really important thing I talked about earlier, that internal locus of control. When we can handle awkward moments, we can operate with much more agency. And then finally, ask them, and if it's just too hard for them to actually talk to you voice to voice or face to face, ask them in a little note. Express your empathy. I know this is going to be really hard. This is going to be a hard adjustment. How would you like me to check in with you as you're going further and further and more without your phone? How would you like me to check in with you about your anxiety? How would you like me to help you navigate this big ask? And then using the way that they would like, they may want you to do that via text, when they do have their phone. Do it. We're asking a lot of them, and we need to meet them where they are. Then finally, in our last 7 minutes, I'm going to give you some ideas of just things you can do at home, or things you can do if you are a therapist or a social worker in schools, to sort of prepare and to help students feel empowered rather than just acted upon. The first thing, we can help them build capacity for time without their phone, and we can help them build boredom tolerance. Okay, so I explained earlier how the prefrontal cortex does not, that region of the brain is really mostly, it's mostly lit up or fires when we are in situations that require us to have the ability to start or stop behaviors, the ability to work through our emotions, the ability to talk like this when I'm talking to a group, but then talk quietly or focus. We don't have a lot of that naturally in our lives anymore. So anything we can do that helps students be exposed to short periods of time in which they are really not accessing their phones and they're not really doing much of anything at all. In my research right now, this looks like boredom, but in the research that exists out there in educational and psychological settings, comes from the wellness communities and some from the neurological communities. And basically it shows that 10 minutes of mindfulness meditation, contemplative prayer, or rhythmic exercise, the kind of exercise that gets you into a zone, if you have 10 minutes of that a day for 4 months, it doubles the gray matter in the prefrontal cortex. That means it doubles the power of the part of the brain that helps you be able to set your phone aside and focus. Newer research actually tells us it also doubles the myelinization in the prefrontal cortex, which means it doubles the ability of the brain to function efficiently, which is what we want for our students, right? So if we can help them build this capacity for nothingness, for boredom, or for what the Dutch call niksen, which is roughly translated as to do nothing deliciously. So even if they're in a class and they're needing to listen to a lecture, we can help them see this as sort of this opportunity to sort of chill, get grounded, melt into your chair. over time, they will be doubling the efficiency and power of the brain and helping get buy-in with this. So not shaming them, not, we can't shame them, but instead having empathy about this is going to be hard and there is a long-term impact. Second, it's so important that you begin to find ways of modeling and talking about developing a strong internal locus of control. If you are constantly looking at how many likes or texts or how much traffic your site has gotten, and then talking to your kid about how they need to be off their phone, this will never work. Your children learn by what you do much more than by what you say. You also can model for them this internal locus of control, being awkward and living through it, or when parents of young children, I help them say, like, instead of just saying no all the time, talk with your children about self-control. So when you're driving, you really need to get someplace quickly and the light is yellow, rather than speeding up and going ahead, narrate to your child, oh, I really want to speed through that light because I want to get where I'm going, but I know it'll be better if we stop, so I'm going to stop right now. Kind of makes me feel nervous, but I can do this stuff with your teens. They may roll their eyes. It will make a difference. We really want to help them feel this sense of, I think of internal locus of control kind of like seaweed, and this is the closest image to seaweed as I could get. Seaweed, if you have that strong root system underneath and you're flexible up top, you can handle the waves without getting kind of, thrown out. We want them to feel this deep sense of rooted groundedness. Third, we must, if we are going to take this away, this has become a major support system for most humans. This is a way that we connect with people. It's a way we manage our emotions, or we think we do. It's a way we self-soothe, or we think we do. Actually, using this as self-soothing does not self-soothe. It stimulates the brain. But it's sort of like this has become one of our major support systems. It's kind of like a support system in a bridge. If you just yank it away without putting something new in its place, it will not work. The bridge will tumble. So we need to add some embodied offerings at home, because they are going to be really dealing with the consequences of setting this down all day at school. So I want to challenge families to start thinking about their home in unique ways. If you have a staircase and you can let your students use it as a rock wall, do it. Start attending to all senses in your home. When they come home, have something beautiful, that's something that smells beautiful, an oil diffuser or a pot with some cinnamon in it, or bake some cookies, but things that tend to the sense of touch and taste and sound and smell, really letting your home be used. Putting embodied options out and about. You'll see here an Etch-a-Sketch. In that little cup, there is some kinetic sand. There you see Legos, you see shape blocks from kindergarten learning math. Put bowls of embodied things out and about on your coffee tables and around the house, because in those ways, oftentimes students will forget they've put their phone down just to interact with something fun. Leave it out and about. Don't make it hard to access. Have opportunities for them to work and move their body. These are Luna sticks. Skill toys are fantastic. You could try kendamas or yo-yos or juggling balls, but things that are available for students to just be able to kind of get back in their skin at home. They will also probably want to use their devices a lot more, and you may want to be a little generous with that in the early days, especially talking about, hey, we'll adjust this as we go. But their bodies in that adolescent stage and pre-adolescent stage, their bodies is a primary way into emotional regulation. And then finally, invite them into some wild embodied experiences that you normally wouldn't do. This is ice blocking, maybe on the first Friday night after school starts, or the first night of school starts to get a little dark, you go to 7-Eleven, you buy a block of ice or a block of ice for each person and bring a towel, go to a park that has hills, you sit on the towel on the ice block and slide down all the hills. Doing wild things with your kids. And doing that in all kinds of ways. Maybe you go to a movie together that's a little more edgy than you would normally do, or whatever you can find, or you play a video game together. But doing things that allow them opportunities to feel some agency in new ways, as their agency is sort of being impacted without the buy-in that we would normally want. These are the last 3 things that you can do to prepare. Really modeling well. you might even take a challenge with your student and say, on your first day of school, I'm going to go without my phone all day. Now, this is going to be hard. And I know schools are having to really deal with accommodations for students who really do have mental health. They live with mental health maladies that require them to be able to check in. But if you don't have a student who has that need, maybe you do. You go without your phone the first few days, and then that gives you something to talk about. Leading with empathy rather than with you must and you better and this is what you no. Empathy, empathy, empathy. And then if you start noticing that your child is very on edge, very agitated, very highly anxious, maybe talking more about like, oh, I just don't even want to go to school. So school avoidance. Really have some things in mind right now. I would encourage you to go to the APA website, apa.org. You can access lists of therapists there. I know the same thing exists for social work. And you know what? I will try to get that and put it in my Instagram and on my website, some places where you can find good therapists that you can even contact ahead of time and get on a wait list. If your child's name comes up on that wait list and they don't need the help, you can just cancel that appointment. But having some ideas of people and resources and places where if your child really struggles to the level that their performance and personal well-being is at risk, get help sooner. Parents on average wait 6 months to reach out once their child expresses real mental health concerns. And that is too long, especially when we are asking them to function without what has become to them one of their primary supports. So this slide is just so you can take a screenshot of it. These are the 6 big things you can do to prepare. Again, I'm happy to send things to you. Just send me an email and I'll send you the deck. If you in particular don't feel confident about how to have conversations with your student, in my last book, I have a whole chapter on how to have conversations with students about mental health, about awkward moments. And it's broken down into young ones, middle age, and then adolescents. So that is a resource you can get from your library, or it exists in audio form on all the places online. And then finally, here are ways of reaching me. My website, if you sign up for my newsletter, you will find out anytime I have other free offerings like this or classes. Also on Instagram, I use that as a place of kind of encouraging people and students in particular. I have a pretty strong youth following to put their phones down. Facebook, I don't use as much, but feel free to email me, feel free to contact me. I am so grateful that you care about this issue and that you care about our young people, and that you, by showing up, are willing to model well in this area. In the long run, this could be such a major win. And we also need to learn from this as grown people. It will be a major win for us as well to set our phones down more often than we do. Thank you so much for being here. The recording will be available. Share it widely. And I'm not sure where I will make that available. It'll be on my website. It'll be on my Instagram. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I applaud all of you for being here. I am so grateful. May you all have a day that is peppered with moments of ease and the awareness that you are beloved and very important in this world for exactly who you are. Have a great day.